Hi guys, and welcome to this week's Cuppa A Gab. I'm really excited for this one. So, this is the podcast where we blend neuroscience and woo-woo. So, you will learn how to work on your mindset and develop a growth mindset, but you'll also learn how to work with the energies around you and within you. And today, this is a conversation. I'll be honest, I've been slightly putting off for a while, and then Kelly popped into my world, and I was like, right, like the universe is telling me I need to have this conversation with someone that is going to speak my language. So today I have the lovely Kelly on with me. Kelly is a birth educator and a hypnobirthing specialist. So what we are going to do in this podcast today is we are going to first learn about Kelly, who she is, why she does what she does, and the power of her work. And then we're going to share a bit about my story and the unfolding that happened for me. And then we are just going to like look at how the two worlds can meet in the middle basically and combine because I think a lot of what happened to me is so rare. And I did definitely feel for a while it pushed me away from everything that Kelly kind of preaches. But I've definitely came back to it and believe in the power of it. So we're here today to bring back the power of it and share the power of the work that you do, Kelly, because it is phenomenal work. So with that introduction, Kelly, I hand over to you. Let everyone know who you are, what you're about.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate the chance to just meet with somebody that gets it as well, because I think it's always so exciting when somebody is really very much on your wavelength.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. So I am Kelly. So as you said, hypnobirthing teacher. So I am the very proud owner of Breathe Into Birth, hypnobirthing. So my kind of journey to that point starts off, which I think it starts off the same way I think most hypnobirthing's teachers start off. So I'm a mum of two, and my first birth experience was not great. So for context around that, so I fell pregnant at 22, 23, just at the end of 22, 23. And I was the first out of my friend group with being that wee tad younger. I was the first out of my friend group, first out of my family. And when I was pregnant, I was just absolutely terrified because this was a completely new experience for me, of course. And I just felt like there was nowhere to turn. Every time you went to the midwife appointments, they were very rushed.
Mhm.
And it was just a case of, right, I've got my checklist of what I need to do, and then I need to get you out the door because there's three other people waiting to come in.
Yeah.
So I was really looking for that support. And obviously, I had a great support system around me, but it's not quite the same. Do you know, like my mum is the most fantastic person in the world, but she was comparing it to giving birth 23 years ago, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I had my sister, but she hadn't given birth before. I had my friends, none of them had given birth before. So I was just like, where am I supposed to turn then if the midwife doesn't have time for me? So I just spent my entire pregnancy absolutely terrified, just so worried about what was to come. And I had the mindset of, well, you know, it'll be all right because surely I'll go in, the midwife will just tell me what to do. Like, surely that's the point that all this information is meant to come to me, that moment when I'm in labor. And then everybody was telling me, like, oh, well, it's natural, it'll just happen. And I just felt like there was just so much going on in my brain, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel remotely supported by anybody. And that's not for lack of trying. I just mean I didn't have someone to turn to that really got it and
Yeah.
that I knew what they were talking about type thing. So I ended up actually having a premature birth
Okay.
with my first my little girl. So she came at 35 weeks. And it was just quick and chaotic from start to finish. So my waters went when I was lying in bed at 5 in the morning, and by 10 a.m. she was in my arms. So it was
Wow.
fast and yeah, just chaotic.
Wow.
So during that time, um, I just felt completely numb and
Mhm.
shell shocked because obviously I wasn't expecting to go into labour at that point either. But the full experience, I just felt like the care that I was receiving, it just wasn't handled fantastic. I was expecting I would go in and everybody would just tell me this is exactly what you needed to do
Mhm.
to birth your baby, but actually it was kind of like I was expected to just know what I was doing, and I didn't feel that. And I felt completely out of control of my body. And then suddenly, what I was getting told was, right, you have a premature baby, so you need to do this. This is high risk. This is a situation where we need to use monitoring. We need to use antibiotics because something bad could happen. And to pile that scenario on top of somebody that was already completely terrified, it was just too much, too
Yeah.
much. So I felt completely out of control of my body, and that experience afterwards, I just felt like a complete like disconnect.
Yeah.
Which now I know, I've done therapy over the past few years, so looking back, I know that that situation had re-triggered like a PTSD episode for me. So I know that now, but looking back, I just had no idea like what
Yeah.
was going on, and I would look at my wee baby girl, and I loved her so so much, but I just felt completely numb in the same breath with the experience. It was the most bizarre thing
Yeah.
ever. So it was a lot to be left to be desired with that experience. It just didn't feel good. And then what made matters worse was then everybody was saying to me, "Oh, amazing! You had this lovely quick experience. That's so good. You didn't
Oh,
need to be in
yeah.
labour for very long, and you didn't need to wait until the end of your pregnancy.
Yeah.
You just got it all over and done with." And I was like, "Am I supposed to be happy with this?" You
Yeah.
know? So that was really difficult, and it took a fair bit of work to get myself out of what was a really big dark hole for a while. It had a really big impact on me in that initial kind of entrance into motherhood. So when it came to falling pregnant the second time, I thankfully, in a way, can't believe I'm saying thankfully, but it landed during COVID. So I had a lot of time to really do that preparation because this time I was like, no, like I will learn whatever I need to learn for
Yeah.
that to not happen again. Like I will make sure that I am the most prepared person in the whole entire world if that's what I need to get a good birth experience. So funnily enough, my sister was actually pregnant at the same time as me this time, and she had done a hypnobirthing course. And she was like, Kelly, this is exactly what you're looking for. This is what you need. And I was like, nah, that's so not up my street. I mean, I can lean into the woo-woo side, absolutely, but I wouldn't describe myself as being like overly spiritual or anything like that. And at that point, I had that idea in my head of that's like for people that are really spiritual. So I was like, nah, I don't think that that's for me.
Yeah.
But she kept egging me on, and eventually I did a hypnobirthing course, and I was like, oh my God, like this just makes everything click. Like this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So I had really flung myself into learning as much as I could for my second birth experience. And thankfully, like it all paid off. I had the most calm,
Oh,
confident, amazing experience second time round. So, I still went into hospital, but Jonah was born in the water, and I just felt so respected throughout the entire experience. I had kind of set my boundaries quite
good.
early on, and what I was expecting from the experience, and the midwives were amazing. They were so, so kind, so respectful of everything that I wanted. And it was an amazing experience. So from then on, I was like, oh my God, like everybody deserves this.
Yeah.
So unfair that not everybody gets the
Yeah.
opportunity to have this kind of experience. Um, so I was like, no, I want to do the training and I want to start helping people because what I'd kind of found naturally had happened was, you know, I'm an oversharer, like I said before we started recording. So I'm an open book. So I had already like posted loads and loads of stuff on like my Instagram, my personal Instagram and stuff, and people were coming to me and being like, like, how did you do this? And what's your perspective on this? And folk had already naturally started coming to me to look for that support. So I was like, this just clicks, this makes sense. And so that's what led me down the path of doing my teacher training. So I've done two. So I've done Catherine Graves hypnobirthing, and I've also done Love Your Birth hypnobirthing training as well. And from there, I've kind of blended those two together and blended in all the other things that I've learned along the way. Because, like I said, I quite appreciate like the science of it
Yeah.
all, like actually how your brain works and stuff. So blended all of that together to create the Breathe into Birth hypnobirthing course, which is unique in that way. And from now, I help women try and gather all the knowledge, try and change their mindset, try and gain some extra confidence, believe in themselves again to to have as positive a birth as possible. And it's not to say that hypnobirthing is a magic wand and it fixes absolutely everything because I never pretend that it is, but it makes a massive, massive difference. And you'll know that yourself from your own work as well. The
Yeah.
mindset is half the battle for sure.
Yeah, well, that's amazing, genuinely. Just hearing your story, like I can see you still get emotional talking about that first birth, and I'm getting emotional like hearing it and hearing how you've had that second experience because
Yeah.
like I think that is where so many people have the fear. I know myself is like if I was to ever go on to have a second child, is it just going to be a rinse and repeat process?
Mm,
Fact that you've went away and said this shit show is not going to be my story, like I'm going to do it
mm.
differently, and you've educated yourself and you had that experience and now you've went on to share that. Wow, like that's amazing, that's amazing. And there's a few like wee threads we'll pull out throughout the session because you've like really hit the nail on the head with a few things. The system is failing,
Mm.
like period. And I'll share my experience in a bit, but like there's so much between our stories I can resonate with. But one thing I that blows my mind is to be 22 having a child. Like, how was that for you? Like that, 22, I was out partying all the time. I couldn't even have looked after a hamster. So how was that experience? Did your life just suddenly shift?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is I have always been quite like emotionally mature, and I was actually never really much of a party girl. Like I would go out with my friends, but I was never the one that was really like over the toilet spewing type scenario. I was the one that was the mother duck, like looking after everybody. Um, so yeah, it was a lot, if I'm honest, because I don't even think like your brain is fully formed at that point. You know, there was a lot that I didn't understand about myself yet, and a lot that I probably had to work through before I even became a mum. And I think that's a hard thing, but I'm very grateful that me and Harlow got to kind of grow together in a way. She's taught me a lot over the years, as well, but it was a lot. And what I found really hard was, going to the antenatal classes that are run by the NHS, and I was the youngest there by about 10 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I felt like I was on the journey on my own, and I think that that's really what contributed to that anxiety throughout my pregnancy as well, because it
Mhm.
wasn't even like I was able to really find people to connect with. And keep in mind, this was now 8 years ago, so things were different back then in
Yeah.
terms of it was a lot harder to connect with people. Social media was very present, but it wasn't quite the same as what it is now, where you can, you can share stuff and then people from all over the world can kind of see it. Back then, it was you had Instagram and you were just shouting to your friends essentially that were already there. So I really did struggle with that, being young and trying to figure out that adjustment. And like I was sitting in with my wee baby girl, and my friends were all still heading out to the clubs, and it was really, really isolating. And not for lack of trying with them, like I said, I had such a great friendship group as well, and we would still do stuff together, even with my wee girl Harlow in tow and stuff. But it did still feel really isolating and scary. And I think even like you watch. My husband's fantastic. We've been together for like 12 years now. So he was fantastic. He absolutely just nailed the fatherhood element from the beginning, and he was a really, really big support for me. But even his life was able to just kind of continue on in many
Yes,
ways.
I feel that.
So it just felt so isolating and scary. But thankfully I did actually end up meeting one friend that I had known through school, and we just really leaned in on each other from about, I'm trying to think when I maybe would have met her, about 4 months in.
Yeah.
And from there, that's when things started to really pick up for me, because I had one person who was going through it at the same time as me and that I felt like I could connect with. So that made a massive difference. But yeah, and you get the judgment and stuff as well. Like I think I look really young naturally anyway. Like I got ID'd in Tesco's yesterday for beer, and I'm like, I am literally 31. But
Yeah. The
hey ho,
22, everyone was like, why is this 15-year-old pregnant?
yeah, like genuinely, I think so. And like, I'd
Yeah.
be walking down the street with a pram, and you would see like the looks that you were
Yeah.
getting.
Yeah.
It actually made me like really. I think it made me isolate myself further, because I didn't want to go to baby classes. I didn't want to go out and do stuff because I just felt like there was that judgment before people even knew me, as well, which was really tricky. So I think all of that contributed to why it felt so hard in the pregnancy in those early months as well.
Yeah. I mean, again, just celebrating you because what you've done is taken something that was and could have swallowed you whole and you've alchemized it and you've actually turned it into something really powerful, a really powerful movement. I think that's amazing. I'm definitely in the process of that myself, to be honest, because I've like used a lot of my experience to like I learned a lot from mine resilience wise, but I've not yet truly alchemized the experience. I'm still
Yeah.
like there's a lot of moving parts, I suppose, that need dealt with in therapy to then be able to sit and go, okay, I can look back with like loving eyes. But yeah, it's very like what you've done is amazing. It truly is. Like I think your work, and even like I was speaking, we were saying before we know Jen Ford in common. She
Hmm.
was young when she had her first as well, and she shared similar experiences. And it just blows my mind to think because I was 30 when I had my
Mm.
son. And I still was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm too young. I'm too young for this. Like, and I'm still like that.
Yeah,
Some days and I'm like, how am I doing this? Like, how is this
I
happening?
know.
You do just do it. Like, it sounds like you already had that maternal instinct because you were doing it with your pals on a night out.
Yeah.
I've kind of always been the same. But yeah, I think even like bring you back for a part two to talk about that other side that you touched on, which is the postpartum there's a resentment that comes in with the fact that the
Yeah.
woman's the mum's life changes is never the same. The man's life, yeah, it does slightly shift.
Yeah.
Pretty normal. They get to kind of crack on and do what they're doing. I think
Yeah.
it's such a conversation in itself because that's something I do hear from a lot of clients. That's something that if you allow it to take hold, it can wreck your relationship. Like how many relationships in
100%.
the first few
100%.
I can see why that happens for sure. So I actually, interestingly enough, so I have always been quite woo-woo. I then brought in the science because I met my husband. He's not woo-woo, he is now, he's with me, right? He's slightly
It just has to be.
that, but he's like, data logical minded. So I started looking into science and neuroscience. And actually everything you do, hypnobirthing, people associate hypnosis and hypnobirthing with woo-woo.
It's
It's
not.
hardcore science. It is literally nervous system regulation and altering your brain states so that you
Yeah.
can do something. So like if anyone's listening, they're like, that's too woo-woo for me. It's not. The data is there for sure. Yeah. So I actually hired I would say similar in your lane, but she was definitely more how to describe. Like I knew a lassie from my network marketing days. She shifted into like birth educating kind of realm.
Hmm.
But she was very like pro like no education, no intervention, no hospital, blah blah blah. And that's what I was like all about when I got pregnant. I was like, I want to do this as holistically as possible, basically. So I like hired her at the start. So my story is a bit like fucking car crash, but anyway, we'll go through it and then we'll kind of pick it parts. So like I was absolutely chuffed. Like I actually like took out my husband and me got married and I was like, right, I'm gonna take my coil out. We're going to New Zealand. So I took my coil out in October and we were meant to be flying to New Zealand the next year for my brother's wedding. We were like, it's going to take a while, like these things. I've been on the coil for like 10 years. It'll take a while. 2 months later, I'm pregnant. I'm like, and we'd literally just booked the flights to go to New Zealand, so we lost all the money.
Oh my.
But I was like, I was definitely, as much as we were trying, I was definitely still like, oh shit, I'm not ready. I feel like everyone kind of maybe feels
Oh
like
yeah.
you're not ready. So I like hired this lassie and I was like, I'm going to do this as holistically and like peacefully as possible. Now, luckily, I had been a mindset coach for 4 years, so I was very good at like just pregnancy was tough. Like I was large, I was very large. I was having a bodybuilder's child. I just fucking blew up, and it's hard work. Like the
Yeah.
pregnancy takes in your body is absolutely insane. Anyway, long story short, I was working with this lassie. She wasn't more hypnobirthing. She was kind of like very pro breastfeeding, very pro like no medical intervention, etc. So I went to my 20-week scan and the gender scan, but also everyone calls it a gender scan. It's actually the anomaly scan. And
Yeah.
and up to this point, exactly as you're saying, I'd never had the same midwife. I'd always been passed pillar to post with midwife. So there's no consistency there. Also, didn't feel like I was getting that much support from the person that I was working with. She's class, but she was living in Bali or somewhere. And yeah, I just kind of lacked village. I was trying to do everything myself. And went to the 20-week scan. And the woman, she was basically doing the scan. She's like, at the start of the scan, she's like, do you want to know the gender? Yep. And then she's doing the scan. She just goes, something's wrong. And I'm sat there, right, with my husband, like, what the fuck do you mean something's wrong? She's like, something's not right. Can you move? Can you move? Can you shift? Can you move? So I'm like lying there, like feeling like everything crashing down. Then she goes, there's something wrong with your baby's heart. And I'm like, what do you mean there's something wrong with the heart? And she goes, are you sure you still want to know the gender? Right. At this point, I was like tailspin, like, you're only asking that because I'm going to you're saying I'm losing my child. So I was like fucking crashing out. Like, what is going on? So then she's like, oh, I was like, yeah, I still want to know the gender. She's like, is a wee girl. She got the wrong gender, right? And then she's like, right, there's something wrong with the heart. You need to go and sit in what me and my husband now call the sad rooms, the rooms that you get taken to if there's
Yeah.
fucking sad conversations. You need to go and sit in the room next door. So I'm sitting in the room next door, and me and my husband are just silent, like looking at each other, like, what the actual fuck is going on here? Anyway, come back in the room. She's like, it looks like he has a thing called TGA. And I'm like, she gave us no further explanation. She's like, you need to get to the hospital right now. I'll phone the hospital. She goes to phone the hospital. She comes back. She's like, the hospital can't see you today. They'll phone you and get you in. And then she sent us on our merry way. So I'm like literally leaving this clinic, and I till this day like will never be more grateful for my husband than that moment and that day. I couldn't even walk out the doors. Like I was just like I thought we were losing my son. So 24 hours, and my husband, logical, evidence-based man, goes home and he's like, right, TJ, and he's looking into it and he's like researching. So essentially, it's transposition of the greater arteries. What it means is the two arteries going into my son's heart were swapped. So it was going to require open heart surgery. But again, we're trying to work all this out because we never got told anything. And then anyway, went away. Next day, went to the hospital and they explained it to us, and they're like, listen, there's actually really good chances of this going okay, but there is a possibility it won't. And essentially, we lived in Edinburgh, and they're like, you need to give birth in Glasgow. There is like non-negotiable. You cannot go like there's a chance he's definitely not going to make it. Basically, if you give birth in Edinburgh, you need to give birth in Glasgow. Therefore, it'll be an induced birth, so that we can ensure that you're in the right place at the right time. So, so much you can imagine, like so much going on. I was just like, that was the worst day of an experience of my life. And so I went away and like spoke to my specialist, the holistic woman that I was talking to, and said to her, this is the crack. And like, instead of kind of sitting with me in that moment and being like, okay, you're just going to have to like batten up and do what you need to do. She was like, absolutely do not induce. Like, it is the worst thing. Like, you cannot do that. You need to go and question why they're doing this. And to me, I'm like, this is logical. They're saying I'm going to lose my child because there's not the specialist on hand in Edinburgh. So that was so I just had a conversation with her and I was like, we're not aligned anymore. Like, I don't care whether they need to fucking split me open in half and do whatever. Like, I'm going medical intervention. So that was my experience. So I'll be honest, it left a sour taste in my mouth for a
Yeah.
while until I started seeing you and your content and started kind of believing in it again. How would you have handled that situation if you had a client coming to you with that?
I mean, honestly, like completely different. And I think, that I maybe do take quite a unique approach, although I don't think it should be a unique approach. But I mean, I'm very much about meeting you where you're at.
Mhm.
It's never my job ever to tell anybody what to do.
Yeah.
Never.
Mhm.
And it's never my job to try and push someone in a certain direction either. It's never my job to try and push somebody to not have intervention, not have pain relief, or to do the opposite either. I am purely there to offer the support, make sure that you feel heard, you feel listened to, and make sure that you have the knowledge to make the decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so completely different, if I'm honest. And I think that and I think that is why it works so well, and why I get such amazing results with clients because I'm not the person that thinks that birth has to be a certain way. And I know in the hypnobirthing and the birth world that there are really strong opinions. about how things should be. But even then, my bias isn't something that really should be leaking into someone else's experience either. Because obviously, like naturally, everybody has got opinions about stuff and everybody would handle things a certain way. But that doesn't mean that just because I would handle things a certain way, that I would ever expect a client to handle things the same way. So I'm very much about just meeting you where you're at. And if you had been my client in that circumstance, a big focus on the work that we would do together would be to make sure that you feel supported so that you've got that outsider, but that outsider that understands what you're going through kind of thing, to just offload
Yeah.
essentially because, you're saying there your husband was, your absolute rock in that situation. I'm very grateful that you had him. But sometimes you also just need somebody on the outside
Mhm.
that you can really just let loose with because sometimes a lot of our thoughts are quite like dark. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it can be really hard to share that with somebody that's also in the same experience with you.
Yeah.
Whereas me on the outside of that experience, you can say whatever you want to say, and I'm not gonna judge, I'm not gonna try and change your mind about anything. I just give you the opportunity to just say it as it is.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's then about, okay, let's look at this situation. What is it that you need from this?
Yeah.
And it looks different person to person. And this is why I absolutely adore working one-to-one with clients. I adore it. And I know, again, a lot of hypnobirthing approaches can be,
Group coaching and that.
they can be quite surface level, I think.
Yeah.
Um, no disrespect to other people, but like, I mean, I've done it in the past before as well, like running, like, say, like group courses.
Yeah.
You don't get
Yes. No, I totally
the same
agree.
experience. So my thing is 100% one-to-one. I absolutely adore it because then it's like, right, looking at every single individual circumstance because everybody needs something different. So it's like in that scenario, I'm then going, right, what is it you need? Because
Mhm.
firstly, information so that you actually understand what the hell is going on. So
Yeah.
let's go through that together and what that brings up. From there, it's then going, okay, is my support enough? Because sometimes it's not.
Mhm.
And I'm not, again, not the person to be like pretending that I'm a therapist or pretending that I've got all the answers to everything because I don't. So from there, I'm going, okay, is there maybe another avenue that we need to explore?
Yeah.
And see if maybe there's extra support that's needed to kind of deal with this because like that trauma alone of going through that experience,
Yeah. The way it
huge.
was told to me was grim. Do you know what really frustrated me at that time as well? Was the people I loved, they did their best because no one knows what to do in that situation. But I kept being told, you can do this. You're a mindset coach. You can do this. And I was like, do you know what I needed at that time? I needed a fucking rage room. Like I needed to smash it and I needed someone
Yeah,
to sit with me and go, this is shit. And that's what I got from my
yeah.
husband. But like again, no shade to the birthing educator. I actually really like her. We're missing like I like I said, bias was leaking. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like, and I think that's what exactly what you're saying you do. You'll sit with them in the trenches and go, this is
Oh
fucking,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
here's what you can control. Because that's what I felt like all control was just ripped away from me. We also did like an announcement for a wee girl and then had to shift it because then we had to go on, had an appointment every 2 weeks in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks I got a scan moving forward. Edinburgh, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Glasgow. And we went to Glasgow, so we got told that, went to Edinburgh. They did a scan and they still didn't. I was like, oh, it's a wee girl. They didn't say anything. Then I went the next week. So we posted, oh, we're having a wee girl. Tried to like be joyful and
Yeah.
behind the scenes crying our eyes out. But then we went through to Glasgow and they're like, that's a penis. So that was quite funny. But yeah, it was
Oh, bless you.
I remember, like, especially doing this work, like, I had this voice in my head going, you know, you need to not stress, you need to talk. And I was praying over my son every day and over myself and my family. But there is that aspect of we are literally being told he might not.
Devastating news.
It's devastating. And then I had the fear of, and it was embedded in me from that birth educator of induction is just horrendous, avoid.
Yeah.
Like I did
Yeah.
going on, and actually I was very blessed. I will say, like my village grew because we signed up for. Have you ever heard of Happy Baby, Happy Parent, Happy Baby classes?
No, I've not.
They're really good. 10 out of 10 recommend.
Okay.
So it's like 4 classes. They teach you everything you need to know. They do a little bit on hypnobirthing, just they
Hmm.
touch on it, but they tell how to do nappies, how to like it's not the government classes. It's really
Yeah.
well. We got an amazing network from that. So I met like 10
Oh,
to 15
fab.
other mums who were still on a WhatsApp. We support each other. Like I feel so blessed with these women. But like I just had this massive fear of induction and I knew that was lying ahead of me. And like I went, so I had Braxton Hicks and I got blue lit through from Edinburgh to Glasgow
Yeah.
labor. And I'm like on in an ambulance, like, what the fuck is going on, man? So anyway, moving forward, I basically went on to get induced and I was in a really strong mindset going into it, right? I was like, I'm gonna fucking smash this, everything's fine. Had my crystals on hand. I was like, hypnobirthing, I'm gonna do it all. And it just was a car crash. Like I can't even describe, like I was in labor for 38 hours and it was like 2 midwife changeovers. And it was just like, it's just the pain. It really was the pain. And I did focus on my breath and I was trying to be positive, but like it just definitely by the latter end. I got so I was on gas and air. Then again, they don't tell you that you need to specifically ask for the epidural. So I was like in complete agony for 20 hours. And I'm like,
Mm.
just get the epidural now. And they're like, thank God you've asked. Boom. But they did it wrong the first time. So
Yeah.
they did it in wrong the first time. And I'm like, just crumpled over, like, what the fuck is going on? Got the epidural that saved sanity slightly. But again, they don't tell you, you still feel things. Like it's
Mm.
a disconnected feeling. It's like you're feeling it in someone else's body, but it's still there. And yeah, basically by the end of my labor, I ended up so I was also going to keep my what's it called, placenta, get it made into pills and everything and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Um, the labor at the end was just awful. Like I basically my markers started going up and I was just covered in paper towels, wet paper towels. They're like, he's pooped inside of you. Because basically I asked for a C-section as well. I specifically requested when I found out about his heart, I said I'll do a C-section because it's going to be way less trauma on me and him. No, 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 no. So I got declined. So that's another thing I have actually put in complaints about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this ensued, and they're like, basically 38 hours is a lot of trauma on my son and me. He pooped inside of me and he was getting stuck, and I'm like passing in and out of consciousness. And it turns out I ended up with sepsis. He was stuck, and there was about 14 people in the room, and because there was like 5 waiting to whisk him off because he was immediately getting taken to ICU. And I just remember just being like, and both me and my husband have discussed it. We both didn't think I was making out that room. Like that we were very much like, okay, this might be. And so they're like, you need to sign, we're taking you for a C-section. And I'm just signing, I don't have a fucking clue what I'm signing, but there was something about a hysterectomy in it. And I was like, signed it. And me and my husband both on reflection have been like, did you sign for it? They could give you a hysterectomy. And I was like, I don't fucking know. Anyway, signed, and then an amazing doctor did just come in. She joined the 15th one in the room, came in, and she just got the forceps and flipped them and got him out. But in that moment as well, there's so much grief because skin to
Mm.
skin in that moment, right? Skin. I was so exhausted, traumatized, fearful of that he was going to die that they passed him to me, and I still like feel so much anger and grief at myself for this. I'm working out with a therapist that I was like, just take him, just save him, take him because he was blue and I was a mess. And like that was my birthing experience. He's immediately whisked off to ICU. And like just quickly afterwards, like my care was appalling, like appalling, because they outright refused to get me a wheelchair to go over and see my son in ICU. So 8 hours after that labor, I'm walking 10 minutes through the hospital, collapsing on the floor to
Ugh.
get to my son. They had me away from him for 8 hours on a drip that was broken. No one was listening to me. So I just discharged myself early, but I ended up 10 stitches. So they're stitching me as well. And they like do it so you can see it, right? She's down there and I can see this fuck. And I'm like, the fuck is going on? And then she's like, oh shit, I've left a clip. Is what she said. She unstitched me and had to restitch me. And I'm like, is someone filming? Like, is someone going
I
to
know.
when you're being punked? Like, what is going on here? So anyway, basically what happened was I discharged myself early and we were then at the hospital with my son for 4 weeks while they're doing all that. I very much was like, okay, fucking put all this aside. It's your son that matters, right? And I just like I just had to dissociate, disconnect from all that trauma.
Yeah.
And I've never processed it. And the reason that we can't go on to have another child is because once you have one with a congenital heart disease, or a defect, sorry, you have a 1 in 40 chance that you're next mine. It's too high a chance because my son was a miracle. That everything went so well for him. It's a
Hmm.
complete miracle. I watched it not go well for other children in the same case. I just can't risk it. So there's
Yeah.
part of me that's like really sad that one, obviously I can't have another child, but two, that I can't do what you've done and be like, let's go
Have that. Hmm.
experience. Because I have heard a lot of the time the second birth. One, because you're more educated and empowered. Because if they'd said no to a C-section, I would just know I'm taking it. But yeah, I totally like, I love what you've done and you've went, because you specifically said I went back with more stronger boundaries.
Yeah.
And I didn't do. All my boundaries went out the window when it came to his health.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my
And
experience. I fucking
do you
went.
know what? Kirsty, like, wow. Like, you had me welling up there. Like, the things that you have endured is just, oh, like, just stuff that's a woman should never ever have to endure.
Yeah,
Like, and it's so sad because I think the thing is, right, with bad birth experiences, with, medical concerns, with the trauma that comes with that, you could argue that it's like, how much can you pour glitter on a bad situation? Do you know what I mean? And I get that, right? And like I said at some point earlier on, hypnobirthing and the support that I offer, it isn't a magic wand and it doesn't just magically minimize trauma necessarily, and that experience, there's an element of that guilt, that disappointment, that grief, that trauma that even if we had worked together, that I wouldn't have been able to fix for you because
I think
it's
even having someone like you in my corner that I could just be like, here's the fear. Like,
yeah,
because that's I didn't want to do that to people because I was so
yeah,
like, let's talk about my son. But I
that's
didn't
it.
have anyone. And I do think that's the power of your work is like, I'm here for you as the mum. That's where we lack in Western society.
100%. And that's what I was just going to say. But like, see, just having that person on hand, and even just had you had someone to be like, right, okay, I'm going in for induction, and I know that that's a trickier circumstance because the honest truth is, induction is a really hard situation for a lot of people. Firstly, you shouldn't have ever been refused the C-section anyway, but I know you know that.
No,
Um,
in hindsight, I was like, that was like the cardiac specialists as well. Like they were like, nah, because
aye.
it's too long healing time for you or something. Whereas I still ended up with like everything.
Well, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
Like
I was
that's
confused.
That's
Insane.
illogical. That's illogical. And I think absolutely, had we worked together, we could have maybe pushed back a little bit on that if that's what you wanted. And if not, then, even just to look at the induction scenario and go, right, this is a bit of a crap situation, but how can we take back control? Because obviously I do. I work with clients that have had inductions, and sometimes they go perfectly positively, sometimes they are less positive. But what it is, and something that I always say to my clients is when it comes to birth,
Mhm.
so often the trauma from birth, it isn't actually about the things that happen within the birth, but how you were made to feel about them.
Yeah, yeah.
So actually, one of the biggest things when it comes to care, one of the biggest things when it comes to trauma is actually the care that you receive during those moments.
Totally. Like
That's where we're getting failed.
like the system, I'm fully like the system is failing women because there was so many wee
Yeah,
moments that like there was just a complete and utter disregard for the fact that I'd just been through something that was like the biggest thing I'll probably ever go through, you know? And
100%.
you just dissociate. And so if
Yeah.
I was to come to you and be like, I'm having a second child, like I want to, where would you even start with someone that has that amount of shit from their first experience?
So first off, I think we have to have the conversation first, of course, to go through the birth and be like, right, what what is it that you're going to need from this experience? And again, me saying, can I meet you where you're at? Can my support be enough? I
Mm,
think for your situation, I would always have definitely recommended therapy.
mhm,
So I've got a couple of people in my back pocket that I really believe in their work, and one of them. She's actually she specializes in working purely with like birth trauma and stuff like that. So I've got a couple of people in my back pocket that I always recommend. And obviously, it's a tough one because not everybody can access private therapy, of course, which is another failure,
Yeah.
I think, for women because then you go down the route of the NHS to try and get some support. And depending on what trust you're in, sometimes the support is good, and other trusts it's not so good. So I've had a kind of mixed bag with clients of how that's went. But
Mhm.
you can, of course, access therapy through the NHS as well. And
I
then,
remember, I don't know, sorry to interrupt there, but
no, go for it, Kirsty.
something you've heard before, but I remember like feeling postpartum depressed. It was just situational depression as well. Like it was insane. But I really remember being like, don't show it to anyone that's asking
Mm,
in case they think or they think you're not a safe mum. You know,
yeah,
like I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but like I feel like that's also a failing of the system that there's people
100%.
about postpartum, but then there's the side of you that's like, yeah, but don't admit that you're struggling because then they think you're struggling and they might intervene and whatever.
Yeah. Kirsty, yeah, that comes up a lot for women. We want to put a brave face on it because we're terrified that it means that we're weak,
Yeah.
although it's absolutely nothing to do with that whatsoever. But we're terrified people think that we're weak, or we're terrified that we'll lose access to our baby. And isn't that an insane?
Yeah.
Even like it's insane that that's something that we have to worry about, that we
Mhm.
wouldn't be supported enough to have access to our children. But that's a real thing for sure. That's something that even I experienced in my first postpartum journey as well. I was very lucky because I had the most amazing health visitor in the world. Like I owe so much to her. Yeah, I still see her out and about every so often, and it's lovely. But she scheduled in extra visits for me every single week for about 2, 3 months,
Um,
just to make sure that I was okay because I knew I was struggling, but I couldn't see it, and she could see it because she had had postnatal depression. So every week she'd come in and she'd give me her little talk about what she went through, and I think we had a mutual understanding that I couldn't see it, but that she knew and she was there. So I was very very grateful for that. But that was a real fear for me as well. Like I was terrified to tell people because I felt like do you know what? I felt like a bit of an idiot because I was like, here I am, I was 23 by this point, but here I am, this 23-year-old who chose
yeah.
to to be pregnant, to have a baby, in a way. And I just felt like everybody's just going to be like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, you were too
Yeah.
young for this.
Yeah. No,
So I
I
was
resonate with that. There was a lot of me like, don't show weakness. You're a mindset coach.
like, yeah,
It's like I feel like you disregard. Like I can sit here logically and be like, obviously you would have been depressed or teetering around, with like circumstances. But I think at the time, as you're saying, you just convince yourself that you're being judged or like you're,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And you're your worst critic.
Mhm.
Like, often the things that we are worrying about people thinking, it's things that wouldn't cross people's mind.
Yeah.
Like I know now that I've got that logical headspace, if I had said to my mum at the time, I'm really struggling and I need help, my mum would have not, there would not be an ounce of judgment, But at the time, it was too scary for me to say that. It was
Yeah,
too
it's
scary.
like literally like the master class I did this week where it's speaking things into existence. And I feel like that's what I was trying not to do, was like speak
Yeah,
existence because then it's suddenly real, but it's already there and present, and it's
yeah,
like I think the work that you do is so, so important, like genuinely. I think a huge thing from people who've had traumatic births going forward is like being empowered, having boundaries, and also having someone like you in their team to go like, no, let's reassess. Not the way that the previous one done it with me, where it was just like almost like fear and shame.
yeah,
I
exactly.
don't want to like no shade on her, but like it was just not done right.
Yeah,
That's what continued to happen throughout my pregnancy is everything was just not handled right. There was no mother center. You
yeah,
mother centered, and that's
exactly.
so needed. Yeah.
Exactly. That is exactly my focus. It's just making sure that you feel supported, because we don't always get that in the right way from either our support systems, not always their fault, or we don't get that in the right way from the care that we're experiencing as well. And another thing I think as well, just off the back of that, I think it's so important for the first time mums as well that have never had this experience. A huge amount of the work that I do, thankfully, as well now is first time mums, because I always think that we can sometimes have a bit of a like we don't want to invest in ourselves sometimes as a first time mum because we don't really understand what we're investing in at this point. Because we always tell ourselves, we go, well, like I'll see how it goes. I'll see how I handle it. I might be okay, so I'll just leave it and see what happens. But I keep saying to people, I'm like, please remember your first birth is not a trial run.
Yeah, yeah.
And your first birth actually affects your second, your third, if you have any more children. Like it has a huge impact and you can't take it lightly either just because it's your first birth and you can't really now just go, I'll just wing it because there's too many there's too many holes in the ground you can fall through. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think that's like a thing that I kind of, no, I didn't really do that. I tried to educate myself as much as possible. But I can see people do it because it's almost like like society has conditioned women to minimize birth as if it's like
yeah,
something that is so like just get yourself back up and on you go and here's a newborn.
yes.
Whereas I think like actually it is truly like we need to remember we're literally fucking birthing a
And it's a
human.
big deal.
That is insane.
Yeah,
The fact that society and the patriarchy has allowed us or convinced us that that is not a big thing,
yeah.
that's to me is, and everything you're saying is so true. Like it does have an effect, not just on your mental health moving forward, but like on how things go. I've heard that for sure. Like how your
100%.
effect.
Because then even it's like I'm just thinking for the practical side of things, like, because then even it's, say, for example, a first time mum who somehow, for rightly or wrong reasons, gets swept up into the induction process, but then it doesn't go as expected. She ends up with an unplanned C-section. Then you're looking at your next birth where you're going, right, this time it's going to be different. But you've now got an additional barrier in the way because now you're planning for a VBAC, a vaginal birth after a cesarean, which is another barrier that they put up. So it just makes it harder from the outset. So, and again, it's no judgment if that is the scenario that people end up in and they come to me for the support afterwards. It's not a judgment whatsoever. But I like to drill home to people that that first birth is not a trial run and it has a big impact moving forward for people as well. So it's important to take the time to invest in yourself, build that knowledge, and make sure that you have that support to make that first experience as positive as possible as well.
I mean, like the the way that we're doing it as society is just like missing this. It's missing
Yeah,
this, like, this is a profound and powerful experience you're going to go through, you know? Even like wee things like education around the placenta. Like I didn't end up being able to keep my placenta because when he pooped inside me, it was infected and then they had to chuck it and all that. But like there's a lot of power in actually
yeah,
this is moving into the woo-woo, but within your placenta, there's so many nutrients and stuff and
mhm,
like but understanding the amount of people that get rushed to emergency section is
yeah,
insane.
yeah,
Like it's not. And I was nearly one of those. And it's just like there should be so much more stock put into allowing women full education and choices
yeah,
around here's all the different scenarios that could unfold and what because even it blowed my mind that like they don't go through the C-section form with you just in case before your labor. They handed me a C-section form where as I said I was signing for something like a hysterectomy as well that they
yeah,
could. I would never do that, but I was out my nut on drugs 38
yeah.
hours after labor. I'm like saying I could have signed my life away. I would
I know you
not
don't know
like
what
I
you're
was
doing.
should do that before. There should be like, yeah,
Yeah,
there's so many things about it for sure. I think that's your work is really important.
yeah, and that is a big part of it as well, because even I think, when we're talking about in comparison to maybe some other approaches, that there is a lot of kind of hypnobirthing courses and stuff that have that very one-sided focus on home birth, natural, and that's great and that's fine
The
for the
side
people
I
that
would
like
do.
it.
That's the
That
side that, yeah, that I was.
Yeah, whereas I put a very big focus, every single course of mine includes induction, includes C-section, because you need to know before you go into the experience.
And there's a place for everything. Like I honestly, a home birth and all that, fabulous if you can do it. But
Yeah,
I died 1,000%. I would have died. My son would have died. So it's like
yeah,
allowing that to exist. Like they can still exist. You know, they can. There's different ways for every birth because births are so individual. I think that's honestly, yeah. I'm going to tag Kelly's account below this video, guys. Are you happy to come back? Because I'm like. I don't want to end
I
this
know.
conversation
Yes,
so much more. Are you happy to come back for a part two?
always.
Yeah.
Yes,
Can I
absolutely.
check, do you support women on postpartum end as well, or does it end with birth? Your support?
So I support my clients with the initial kind of postpartum stage. Um, it's definitely an avenue I'm looking into because I think that there's space for that for sure. So I would say watch this space. It perhaps may come.
Yeah, we'll be watching. Yeah, for sure. Because the postpartum, first even like 9 months, you're just like, it's
Yeah,
ones. Yeah, it's
it's just mental.
yeah, like Western. You look at Eastern society and like they move you into a hotel after birth and they look after you, and it's like we're
You're doing it so wrong.
yeah, we're doing it so
I
wrong.
know.
Possibly. Well, yes, I will tag Kelly's account. Kelly, thank you so much for your time today. Like this conversation
Pleasure.
alone has healed a lot of parts of me as well. Like I really do. Because as I said, like I just had a sour taste in my mouth and it was, I think that's why I wanted to have this conversation because I do believe in your work that not even hypnobirthing being it's not woo-woo, it's literally science. There's evidence-based. There's
Yeah,
an absolute place for it. And so if anyone's watching here and you've had similar experiences to mine, you've been a bit traumatized, please shout out to Kelly, like reach out to her and see how she can help you because if I was going on having our child, I would 1000% be getting you in my corner. The world needs more women doing what you're doing. So thank you.
thank you so much. I really
Oh,
appreciate
and
it.
I'm definitely going to bring you back for part two.
Let's do it. Yes, there's so much to talk about and unpack.
Well, but yeah. See you later, guys.